the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadi people of the Yuin River, and the Liliquorni people of the Far South. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. Tonight we have Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Burgess and Councillor Rozak. Would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Sure. Tonight we have General Counsel Matthew Grimsey, Director Community and Place Lyle Ground, Director Infrastructure and Assets Frank Chen, and Director People and Corporate Paddy Johnson. We've got support staff, Innovation and Technology Project Officer Connor Watson and Executive Assistant Olga Barth.
Thank you. There is no apologies tonight. Leave of absence, Deputy Mayor Thorpe is on leave. There's no absent tonight. Councillors, do you wish to declare any interests on tonight's agenda items? Okay, thank you. 4.005/25. The recommendation is, do I have a councillor to move a motion that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council 30 April 2025 as circulated be confirmed? Councillor Jessup and Councillor Gibson. Do any councillors wish to record or report any changes?
Amen.
That's the case, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. The motion is carried. Do we have any legislative items?
No.
Do we have any urgent matters? I just have in Mayor's announcements. Last week we had National Road Safety Week and we held 3 events. One on Monday up at the shopping complex car park for public, just to raise awareness. We had the local police attend that as well. We had a staff breakfast where we also invited contractors to the council that are outside crews. It was really good to see them all mingling together, so it was a really good morning, and we had Minister Abetz attend as well. And then on Thursday, we had emergency services car crash scenario for the high school. We had about 100 students. I think that's correct, isn't it, Councillor Burgess, Councillor Rozak? They were helping with the barbecue, and we also had the primary school that were quite attentive over the fence in their recess time. But it was powerful because the kids weren't talking, they were focused on what was happening. And Anthony Wicks spoke after with the TFS and spoke about the scenario that they'd had when they first joined as volunteers. And I think that those interactions with the youth make them realise that the volunteers are just their next door neighbour or someone down the street, and they have to live with those incidents when they happen as well. So it was very powerful, and I really want to put a thank you out for everyone involved in that day. So well done, everybody. Public participation, answers, public question time, answers to questions taken on notice. There was no questions taken on notice from previous meeting. Questions given on notice. There was 2 questions given on notice from Jeffrey Swan regarding Lonavale Road, and the responses are on the website and included in the minutes. 8.1.3, questions without notice. There are several questions emailed in for tonight. 2 from Caleb Elcock regarding Council's automatic email receipts and remaining grant funds from Jeffreys Track. So there was a 2. 2 from Gary Ashdown regarding a recent grant received from the Department of State Growth for the Yuin Valley mountain bike study for Dover. 2 from Irene Swan regarding Lonavale Road, and 2 from Simon Chadwick regarding the Great Wheelie Bin survey and curbside collection. Responses are available on the website and will be included in the minutes. As we have no one in gallery, we have no public question time.
Right.
We might come around to councillor participation. Yep. 8.2, deputation to council. Are there any deputations?
We have a petition tonight,
A
yes.
petition, not a deputation, yes?
So we have a petition that I'm tabling tonight. The petition is regarding the safety and maintenance of North Huon and Lonavale roads. It contains 523 signatories and complies with the requirements of section 57(2) of the Local Government Act as an electronic petition.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is the petition regarding the safety and maintenance of North Huon and Lonavale roads lodged with Council 13 May 2025 be received and noted.
Thank you. So do I have a councillor to move that for me, please? Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Gibson. I'm sorry. Yep. Councillor Gibson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you. There's no reports for council for planning. Okay, so general reports. Are there any councillors tabling their activities tonight? And yes, and if so, would you like to speak to them? So would you like to speak, Councillor Gibson?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I was at the workshop for the community halls on Saturday. And I thought it was an excellent workshop, well presented. I was just going to say I'm a bit disappointed about the misinformation and scare tactics that are being put out in the community about council trying to sell the halls and get rid of community assets. So I was there and I heard what was said pretty clearly. Council aims to remove work health and safety risks and the potential cost to ratepayers, make hiring easier and equitable through online booking, take responsibility for hall maintenance and address the specific nature of each hall. That's what was promised, and the aim of leaving the community friends of the hall to work together on activating the halls, provide advice on what maintenance needs to be done, and fundraise for the goals to which the council staff said that they may help contribute if it's a valid maintenance item or improvement. What I also heard was that there's going to be discussion with each of the halls and to refine the system, and that each of the halls was going to be treated, for its own specific, because they're incredibly different and have different roles in the community. So I guess I'd just like the community to accept that this whole process is being done in good faith, and to engage with the staff in a really open and constructive way. And I'm sure we'll be able to find our way through to a really, really good system that works much better into the future.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, yes, Councillor Robertson.
I attended that session as well, and it's worth noting that I've put a councillor question in to seek some further information in the form of a template of what the financial reporting will look like post-transition, so that awareness of where we're heading and what it'll look like, I think, will help people evaluate and adjust to change through their community organisations. And I met with someone from Ranelagh Hall Committee yesterday, but also, if anything, the petition that we've just accepted from the North Huon Collective is an example of where community organisations can and should be powerful and effective in areas beyond just the hall. And the hall is really powerful as the physical centre where we often get together for our meetings and celebrations. But it's just part of what our community is concerned about. So echo Councillor Gibson's encouragement to community to participate to the fullest in that process, and hopeful that we will have some wonderful community organisations out of it that are feisty when need be.
Was there anything else on your activities that you initially put your hand up for, or was that?
No, I was just going to add to that one.
Yep, that's fine. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, I had the privilege of doing the wreath laying at the dawn service at the Huonville Anzac Day parade, and I just want to say what a well-run event that was, well attended, and feedback I've heard from other people is that they were all well done. But again, I suppose that's another example of community-led organisations, doing something in their community. But well done to the people who were behind that. It was really specky.
Yeah,
Good show.
we got a lovely thank you back through one of our council staff today, thanking them for their help on that, their help with that.
Absolutely. There was 2 or 3 prominent council workers who were running around like bees in a bottle, doing a lot of stuff, and yeah, they did a great job too.
They did get a nice thank you today. Yes. Count, did you have your hand up there?
Not very bad.
Sorry.
No, but if I could just add to Councillor Gibson's, very much agree, very much agree. It's always negative Nancy, but uninformed or ill-informed. But is there a place where we can direct people to find this information about these holes?
I think I'll hand that one over to the CEO. Because, yeah, got questions and answers, haven't you?
Yeah, and I agree that we continue to work hard on this project and take it really seriously, and the hyperbole online is difficult to, it's just distracting. So we committed on the day that we would take questions. We answered a lot on the day, but also took a whole lot more. We're going through answering those. We've committed to provide those publicly. That should lay out all the everything that we can in detail at this time. But as Councillor Gibson says, beyond that sort of that structural element of the booking systems and taking over maintenance responsibility, beyond that, the activation of the halls and preserving that unique character is highly unique to the communities in those around those halls, and so that process, we may not have the answer for all of those, and we see an implementation, a change process of realistically more than 12 months in working hand in hand with those communities to keep them engaged in those spaces to the level that they want to be, and also would hope that other community participants may emerge as well, as they realise that there's a more direct conduit for them just to come to council and activate the space themselves without having to go through an established committee.
And I think that's quite good. And I also think too the comments sort of missed a lot of the benefits, like the 3-year booking system and, the amount of usage that they wouldn't be paying for. There are benefits to all of this as well. So although people have initially been quite panicked, and I could feel that in the room on the day, it would be good. It would be good to at least recognise that there are positives to this also. Yeah, thank you, that was all.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Onion.
Just on that subject, I realise we're trying to take risk away from people hurting themselves, maintaining these halls and keeping them off ladders and not using chainsaws. But do we still envisage on giving them some ownership of sort of tasks that we deem to be not too risky, and helping with maintenance and still having some sort of ownership over their respective halls and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so potentially that can be, and again, would need to be worked through the detail of those halls, and there's some committee members that may want to do that, and others that just literally want to run events. But an example of how we could deal with that would be having low risk work and having working bees where people want to get involved and do that kind of stuff, and there's a level of supervision and agreed tasks that are safe. Go for your life. But yeah, that won't include getting on the roof with ladders and chainsaw work
is no fun anymore.
Do it at home, just like I do.
It's not the Antarctica where nobody sees what happens, mate.
But that kind of, that's one example, but that's the kind of stuff we want to explore with what are the needs and interests of individual hall committees. But there's certainly ways to do it, but ways to do it in a safe place where we're not opening up the community to liability. It's like council has the community's money on trust, and we don't want to be, being silly with that.
Councillor Burgess or Councillor Jet? No? No? Okay, we'll go back to Councillor Jessup and then Councillor Gibson.
Just on that point, and I know we probably shouldn't be discussing it now, but we are. I just had the experience with the Midlands Council to book something for an Alpaca Association event. And we went there centralised with their booking. They're like us, they've got a shed load of halls all over the place. It was a good experience. The person knew what was available. They could talk to us about which hall had which benefits and who was using a hall at that time and stuff like that. So there are benefits to the community when we look at all of the assets across the community and that sense. So I think that we just need to feel it through. Certainly, things like making sure each hall get its fair share of maintenance and stuff like that. I think is really important that we need some governance overlays over that. But I unfortunately had a look at Facebook today as well, and I was disappointed with the stuff that was on there.
We get people are frustrated, but as you say, that centralised booking experience, that better customer experience, that's what we can't achieve under the current circumstance. And our primary stakeholder here is the community at large. We want to activate these halls. The hall committee members, the volunteers themselves, really important. They've got an important legacy, but they're only one group that we're trying to find benefits for. Overarching, we just want to use halls used.
Yes, Councillor.
I just wanted to backtrack to the Anzac Day Signet Dawn service where I laid a wreath. That was a really beautiful service too. Real commendation to the Scouts and the
Yes.
benches because they sort of made it. And there's a question that came while I was standing there because the council garbage truck came through while they were trying to I think it was before the last post anyway. And apparently, so the guy behind me said, happens every year, can you do something about it? I don't know if we can, but it would be really nice if it didn't come down Main Street Signet on that day, at that time.
Maybe they should pause at 6 o'clock for fun.
Oh, the driver was sort of going, what am I meant to do? It wasn't his fault.
This is our curbside collection truck. Yeah, right. Okay. Oh well, look, apologies, and I'm sure we can sort that out.
Yeah, there's
They're
some.
hard at work on a public holiday.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's.
Rubbish never stops.
No.
But maybe they could do the route backwards and come through it.
Okay. So thank you guys for all that. 11.005/25. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports and minutes in the period 1 to 30th of April 2025 be received and noted? Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor O'Neill. Do you know? Anyone else? Yes.
I've got a whole lot of little bits and pieces I've noted through the general reports. The Community Climate Change Action Group, I saw that was ticked off as complete. I just wondered what the membership was of that and how that, a bit more information about that, I guess. I was intrigued to read about the adaptation game. That sounds quite interesting and a way to engage and educate people about what to do, with the climate changing. I was interested to be informed about when this is coming to, when it's going to start here and whether it will be customised to be Huon based, because it's obviously different areas would have very different sort of issues to deal with in the game, and I'm not quite sure how much the customisation would be there.
Okay. So
Yeah. Well,
we're going through.
In response to your first question on the action group, I'll take that on notice and just give you a fulsome answer in terms of the sort of detail that underpins that tick-off. On your second question on the game, it is fully customized. It basically is a map of the Huon Valley. So the map of the Huon Valley, there's an understanding of the different risks that are presented in the different areas. These form part of the game. The intent is to make it applicable to us in our situation, and so it sort of triggers that thinking around what do we do in a particular space, what sort of outcome do we want to see in terms of adaptation, and then what are the steps we need to take to get there, and that's what the game does. So it might sound like, well, it is a game, but there are real meaningful things that can come out of it in terms of prioritization and planning for adaptation action in particular sub-areas of our community.
yeah, it sounds really interesting. I had a bit of a read online about it. The resurfacing of the walking track in Dover, I'm just sort of vaguely interested in, because it's a gravel track, I'm just vaguely interested in the cost per metre and how often that needs maintenance, but that probably would have to be on notice, whether that's an economical way to do it or whether the high maintenance.
Yeah, we have to take that on notice in terms of financial side of things. The one thing I do want to mention is the gravel track actually provide also a more user-friendly experience, particularly for people who want to have a jogging exercise, because the hard surface actually have more impacts on what people, the knees and the physical strength
Yeah,
side.
I mean, the strategic planning work that we're doing, I think, is really, really exciting. And it's so important for the Valley's future. So, you know, on the back of that, the structure plan for the Huonville residential structure plan, I was, you know, very excited about forming a real livable town rather than sprawling suburbia, you know, because all of the, you know, the issues of safer in bushfire, reduced need for cars, public transport, promoting health, and walking and cycling, using less land for people, supporting economic growth, health outcomes, and better social connections. They all sort of really make it. I mean, I hope I'm old enough, live long enough to see it all in place. Yeah. So, what else?
I mean, just on that
That
one
was-
before, probably the public doesn't know that we went to a workshop where we saw a pre-draft, and I was really, really impressed with that work that the consultants had done and our staff. And yeah, it's some of the best, and I've seen a lot of planning across Australia, but I'd say it's some of the best planning I've seen in a township or a city in Tasmania. It's not a huge area, but they'd really just thought about how do we make the most of the natural resources, how do we make the most of the supplying housing for people, which we know is a massive issue. And I'm really looking forward to the public consultation on that. So, which is, do we know when that's starting? Do we? Sorry.
I think it's 2 weeks, but I don't want to be held accountable to it.
We never hold you accountable, no, don't worry.
It's imminent, yeah.
So, okay, well, and we'll be able to publicise that, but I really do hope that the community engages with it.
We are worried a bit about the amount of engagement we've been trying to do at the moment. There's been a lot on, and we don't want that burnout.
You're one engagement officer.
Well, not so much for her. She's got a lot of energy, Lisa Pole. Yes, a lot of energy to keep going and really enthused about these things. But it's more the community burnout from participating in ongoing things. But it's all building towards, as the consultants laid out. And I think one of the things they said to councillors in that workshop was they had such good stuff to work with in applying township planning principles, because we had done the community vision and all the work they can build on to go, what's important to this community, what do we need to deliver. So all these engagements, and yes, it takes time to put this stuff together, but all these engagements we're doing are all building into giving it ultimately statutory teeth and delivering a structure plan and a SAP that'll deliver like a really compelling product for Huonville, and we hope the same for Cygnet, which is the one we're working on in parallel. Yeah. So yeah, we're all very excited about it, but please, public, get involved.
The quarterly report is part of this too, isn't it? This is part of the agenda. I had a few minor things there. Page 10, the graph didn't relate to the text, so I was a little bit confused there, but I can't remember what it's about. It wasn't too much. In general, I think sometimes the graphs are unclear, like page 12, there's a whole lot of graphs. I don't know how important it is, but it's to do with the waiting lists for the childcares, and they've all got different, but I don't know whether it's necessary to have that much detail. It's sort of like a day-by-day sort of waiting list assessment, but maybe it is a critical measure, I'm not sure. I guess a question. I did have a question about the right place, just wondering how the engagement there is going, and how much online engagement we're getting, how much face-to-face engagement we're getting, because, you know, I volunteer in this area and it's a really important area, and I think there's a lot of really good information there, so I'd just be interested to know about other ways of, you know, getting the message out on that. I don't know whether we put the right place, a bit of blurb on the back of our public toilet doors or something, just to so that people are more familiar with it. That sort of idea. Anyway, that's sort of a question or a suggestion, I'm not sure which.
It is a good program, the right
Good
place.
program, yeah, but I think a lot of people don't really know it exists.
But we'll just take it as a consideration to promote the right place more. Yep.
Do you have any others? Yes?
I have a question on the Strellis. I note that it's been in abeyance for a little bit. I'm just wondering if we get a feel for the technical manager, strategic and planning, who might have attended. I know last year we went to some sessions where they were very keen to stress that it wasn't going to be so much thou shalt not do things, which the last one was I felt very restrictive and very negative. And they were talking about trying to make it more enabling of being able to do things like densification and stuff like that. Just wondering if they're still following down that path, or if they've forgotten about that and they're turning back into planning Gestapo.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Everything I've seen in terms of outputs suggests they're still on the enabling path, but obviously there's always a balancing act when it comes to strategic planning, but certainly a really positive approach, I would say, up to this point in terms of what they were seeking to achieve through the strategy. So, yeah.
But I certainly think, you know, with all the getting back to all the work that we're doing, we're spending literally hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands of man hours and person hours to enable our community to do smart and innovative things. One document like this could come over the top of it and just wipe that out like a row of mahjong tokens. So certainly, I think if you understand the feeling of this group is that we're very keen to actually have innovative and smart planning solutions for a changing world. So hopefully they'll do that.
Yeah, I'll just say, yeah, it's actually been a great process because it's been so collaborative, and we've been able to sort of from the start be on a working group and have input. We've been clear on what our objectives are and what we're trying to achieve in that strategic planning space, and that's been for the most part incorporated, or where it's been challenged really well, and we've had opportunity to present evidence for our position. What I will say is I want to see that continue, because obviously there's going to be a change, as articulated in this update. There's a change in how this strategy is going to be developed, with it potentially going back to the State Planning Office. We want to see that continuation of collaboration with local government in that space. We don't want to see it then sort of get taken away from us. I think a lot of really good progress has been made in that space. It needs to continue.
Do you feel there's anything we have to do to encourage it, like write to the Minister and say it's been a great experience or anything? You know, is there any levers that we can pull maybe to encourage it to be open still?
Yeah, I think we have had discussions with the Minister where we did give good feedback on it, but that was a few months back. Certainly, I had my meeting with the State Planning Office, where I again articulated the same position, that we were happy with the process and keen to see it continue. I can give you further updates as
No,
they
well,
progress.
yeah, absolutely.
We can respond to that.
And if it starts going off the line, maybe we're off the rails, maybe then we can act.
Yeah, I mean, and I think councils as a whole that have been participating in this are all on a very similar page and really ambitious for, you know, a better system, and have welcomed this, albeit it has been a pretty protracted process. So we're in touch with our peer councils as well, and if it starts to stray from what it's been, I think our voice will be it'll be a collective voice that'll go through that way.
Thanks. Thanks, Lon.
Do I have any other? I only have one comment to make about this, and it's in the medical section. Today was a special day as I went to Dover and I witnessed the handover of some money from the old Ramanier Hall Committee, which were never a council hall.
Yeah, it's never on council hall. No.
And so it was money from the committee that are no longer going to be about, because they haven't had their hall for a good while. It was never rebuilt after it burnt down. 44, it says 30 in here, but there's been another 15, the balance today. So in total, it's over $44,000 with some great equipment that the doctors are looking forward to. And we're lucky enough to have Dr. David that has worked in emergency that in Hobart, which a lot of this equipment he's pre-used before. So yeah, it was pretty special. So a big thank you to them, and for the tireless effort that a lot of these community people have done. We've talked about our hall committees, we've talked about different committees in our towns. This was a hall that was built by the people, that stayed in the hands of the people, burnt down. It was terrible, but the money that they had in their account, they wanted to make sure they chose the right thing to do with that money. So thank you to them, and there'll be a story in the Ewan News next week. So, and it was very heartening to see. So we'll go back. Councillor Armstrong, you wish to?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. Okay. 12 is workshops. They're
I'll leave it as read. We've talked about the strategic planning project workshop, which was really a really positive highlight. But just, you know, good discussion had around fees, charges, budget, and annual plan process, and then that ongoing policy review, which is a feature of workshops that we're all looking forward to getting past.
definitely.
But again, another just a really good session of deep thinking and great engagement.
Thank you. 13, councillor questions. 13.1, answers to questions taken on notice. There was 2 from councillor Robertson. Were taken on notice from April, and the responses will be included in the minutes. Thank you. There was no councillor questions given on notice. Councillors, are there any questions without notice tonight? Yes, councillor Jessup and councillor Burgess.
And I know this is potentially a sensitive issue for many in the community, but Mayor, as a farmer, one way or the other, I've spent most of my life breeding animals for either pleasure or for eating and for food, and so I've been involved in farming animals for a long time. And it's always extremely distressing when you lose an animal, even just one, and I can only imagine the massive amount of distress that not only we've seen articulated in the community by community people, but by the workers involved in the salmon industry. And put it in context as well. This is not the first time we've had mass deaths. According to the ABC, in 2024-25, there was almost 2 million chickens culled through bird flu. And then you don't have to go back to before the beginning of this millennia, where there were 6 million cows, sheep and pigs destroyed in the UK from foot and mouth disease. It's a sad part of commercial farming, and every business, every farming enterprise must work to improve their husbandry and inoculations. And I know that the salmon industry are looking at vaccinations and all that sort of stuff. But bringing it more back down to us, so I'm just wondering, Mayor, if we had a bit of a feel of how many of our staff were involved, or hours-wise, or just numbers involved in the clean-up stuff, so having to deal with that. But also, more at a general level, I know that our staff and their families have varying involvement in the salmon industry. And I'm just wondering, have we put anything in place to support our families who have had to experience what must have been a terribly shitful experience?
Thank you, Councillor Jessup. Can that one come through as far as staffing goes?
Sure, yeah. Look, I'm not aware, well, in official council business, we didn't have any staff that were involved in cleanups. The industry got onto that themselves. We certainly had staff doing our elevated beach sampling and that kind of stuff, but they weren't confronted with any distressing scenes or anything. So we were sort of quite separate to that. But yeah, we do have a number of staff that either direct family or friends with people in the salmon industry, just as members of the community. They sort of many of us know those people. We haven't put in place any particular actions, activities in support-wise around this for our staff. Obviously, we're continually promoting the use of the employee assistance program and those existing systems, and there wasn't anything to indicate that we needed to do anything more significant.
So it would come to our attention if there was significant issues, I think.
Yeah, correct.
That's good to
I
know.
think our staff had a sort of a general just level of concern, like many others in the community, that were witnessing a pretty horrible thing, and that no one, including those in the industry, wanted to see, and just concern for just the well-being and sustainability of the valley. But yet, nothing that's led us to think we need to take any other specific action for our staff.
I'm sure all of us would feel for the staff and everybody involved. So.
Thank you. Councillor Burgess.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, I asked a question about EV charging in the Yuin Valley, and I'd like to thank the Director for his answers. What I'd like to follow up on that, with your engagement for private investors with the EVs in the Yuin Valley, is any progress being made at all? Anything in the near future coming up?
Can I pass that through to you?
What do you want? Sure. Yeah, so there are discussions underway with private investment in that space. So yeah, we're looking at, I can't say anything definitive yet, but certainly there's opportunities that we're looking at. And again, we just play a facilitatory role, obviously we were looking at the private sector to sort of do the delivery itself. But yeah, we are in active discussions.
Thank you.
We'll update as we go.
There's no planning nuances about having EV chargers or anything like that, is there? Or is there anything that we're doing that makes it difficult, I suppose?
We try not to be difficult with EV charging. I encourage it.
Planning laws are difficult, let's say.
Sure. Within our sphere of control, certainly we don't want to be standing in the way of getting that sort of infrastructure down into the valley. Yep.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Robertson and then Councillor Armstrong.
I've got a more optimistic question.
You've got a pair.
I've got a lovely pair. And I understand we've had a fantastic fruit season in the Huon Valley this year.
Yes.
So we've been talking about community groups, and there was some discussion last year when we scaled back on our economic development area in council. how are we going with ongoing review of our output in that economic development area and supporting industries which have great success when they grow lots of fruit? It even becomes a problem because they run out of bins and cold stores and so forth. So, how are we going on that economic development front with the note of, we can grow great fruit?
I'll have to take it on notice and come back to you with some detail. There's no, I don't have any basis of review to demonstrate outputs, but I also don't have a baseline to work from what we were previously doing, which is part of the challenge. So it'll be more in terms of what we are doing and the relationships that we're forging to support our business community down here. And it's, great that we've had a good fruit season, but times are tough for business. So it's the kind of support that we can do to try to make planning improvement processes as fluid as they can be and frictionless, and just understanding of the challenges that our business community have got that they're going through is the biggest thing we can do at the moment, I think. But I'll come back with some more detail. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Some of you might celebrate, but
It's okay. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. They're both quite different. I've been asked by a client to nicely ask council if they would consider opening the Huonville pool early next season, because that was a timely.
There wasn't.
Because they've really appreciated the fact that there's been more lanes free. How can I now continue on? They've all really enjoyed the fact that there's been more time for them to swim. So if we could remember that next year, because I don't even know when it opens, like whatever, but if we could make that maybe a permanent thing, that was that question. And also, when the new ambulance station comes to Cygnet, will that be manned by volunteers, permanent staff, or both?
First one, the pool. We can bring some advice to councillors ahead of that opening season and let you know what that looks like. It costs a significant amount of money, so that will be the imperative. We absolutely understand the community benefit, and it was awesome to see so many people utilising both pools this year. But ultimately, it needs to be a financial decision that you make at the time when we see how we're tracking at that sort of mid-year point. So that's that one. You'll hear more on it from us. Ambulance station. It's a double branch, they call it. So it's got capacity for 2 ambulances eventually. So it's being built with future proofing in mind. But these are permanent full-time staff.
Because that was another Facebook conversation, and somebody had asked me, and I was fairly certain that was the case, but I just wanted to make doubly sure before I went ahead and shared that news with others.
Full-time presence in Cygnet, which is great.
Lovely, thanks.
Probably, I was going to leave us to a financial report, but assuming we're already talking about the Huonville pool, we've put off the upgrade, the tiling upgrade this year, haven't we? We've put that back a year, and we said we were looking at perhaps learning something from the Glenorchy build experience. So, are we looking at a different service, or is it going to be tiles, or is there a possibility we go back, we stick with paint, or what's the sort of what can we learn from that build?
It's more that the pool requires, and Glenorchy's experience hasn't just been relining the pool. It's also all the age plumbing and all the rest of it. So there's learnings around just full cost, because it's a lot of money, and the staging of that project, and whether you make decisions to reline it and effectively give yourself a good quality line product, but know that there's other gremlins that lay beneath in the plumbing, etc. So it's making those staging decisions is the main piece. But yes, there are different lining options. But we haven't made any kind of decision or significant inquiry based on what we saw at Glenorchy which would suggest moving away from tiles, but I will say we're well beyond paint and things already got like millimetres of paint when it should be microns.
Okay, and the Norgie pool was a complete write-off, wasn't it? That they're starting from scratch, or are they just relining it?
No, they've got their $85 million
That's right.
Ute thing, and but the community said no. Actually, what we really want is just to get what we had back to a workable, safe condition. So that's what they're focusing on at this point. They still have ambition for the longer piece. So theirs it was in a very rundown state. So we're not talking apples and apples, but it's kind of if you're going to go in and reline a pool or fix the plumbing, doesn't matter how bad the stuff you're replacing is, it still costs the same to upgrade it.
Yep.
So yeah, there's quite a lot to learn, but more around the staging and how we're going to make it stack up financially. Because again, just big dollars.
Yep.
Yes, you're right. You happy with that? Yes.
I had a question about the Amy Sherwin Foundation. So probably everybody knows, but Amy Sherwin was from Judbury and she was a world famous opera singer. And the Amy Sherwin Foundation has made this sculpture which is going to Hobart. But as a part of the project, they're also making these smaller ones for I think something like $3,000 from marble. So I wondered whether council should be considering if there's a suitable location for one of these small sculptures and whether there's any budget for within an arts budget or something for that. And I was thinking about the Huonville Town Hall, renovations and whether that could be included in some way.
I also wonder whether that could be also a community-driven project.
Well, we'd have to have a location. I mean, the funding, I think you could probably do as a community.
Yeah.
Thing, or 50-50 or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you ever sing at the Moors here, or?
I don't know all of the facts. I assume she did, but she was rather plucked out of,
Obscurity.
Judbury, I think.
Yep.
Somebody
Yeah.
heard her sing and just
Yeah.
she went from strength to strength.
Yeah.
She was quite young when she left the Huon, wasn't she? Like quite young.
Yeah, she came back to the Huon, I think.
Yeah, for 3 years.
Anyway, just a question more about the location.
We could put her somewhere.
I would have thought so.
It's a big town.
Is there some more information getting provided by the fund?
Uh,
They get regular contact from the Amy Sherwin Foundation.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they might provide an update or something on what exactly the details are. Then we can give it to councillors and consider what we want to do about it.
Okay,
Good to know that there's that opportunity.
I'll chase that up.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, councillor.
I guess further on that, I'd quite like to see the town hall perhaps renamed as the Amy Sherwin Town Hall. I think that's, but we need and I think there's a proposal for redevelopment there, and a stage one being advertised at the moment, which is mainly about the toilets. But yes, that's, and I think I do remember that she had performed in Huonville and maybe even up in Hobart before she was identified.
Definitely performed in Hobart
Yeah.
at the town hall there.
Okay.
Yeah, but before she began her international career.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I remember something about that in the story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, maybe that's something that the theatre company or can look at as well. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other questions? No? All right. No notice of motions? No? Okay. Let's go on to report number 15.018/25, audit panel recommendations. I'll refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Goodson, and a seconder. Councillor Rozak.
Look, I think it makes sense from my point of view. That this is a delegated responsibility. Doesn't come to why would you bring it to councillors? I think it makes sense.
Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Robinson?
I've previously sent an email around councillors and staff on this with some background from both the SPPs and the Looper Act, and even up to the Acts Interpretation Act, which overarches all our state legislation that we operate under. There's two main contentions from this proposal. One is that we issue a new delegation for staff to make decisions on these types of applications. And the second, that we seek action from the state government to amend the Act to deal with this situation. I'm concerned, I have concern, and I don't support either of those actions because my reading of the legislation, and particularly section 57(1)(b) of the Looper Act, is that those existing delegations to staff under section 57 cover applications, an application for a permit in respect of a use or development which may not proceed as proposed by the applicant, I prohibit it, unless a planning authority waives, relaxes or modifies a requirement of the scheme or otherwise in its discretion consents to the use or development proceeding. So that 57(1)(b) pathway provides an avenue under that existing section 57 delegation for staff to make a decision on an application which otherwise would be prohibited, which can't be approved under the setup of the SPPs and the planning scheme. So my reading is that that pathway exists now. The second point in terms of requesting amendment by the state government of the Act doesn't actually relate to disapproval or rejection of an application, so the decision-making process on that. It actually seeks to amend the Act to prohibit an application to prevent an application for one of these prohibited uses. So the wording is to make a prohibited use or development not a valid application. And I'm really opposed to that. We have a system where you can basically apply to do anything. You could apply to put a rocket launcher in the middle of Buenville residential area. It's not going to pass any of the tests in the planning scheme, but on principle, the way the Act and the system is set up are that any application, you can propose to do anything. Then the decision maker does the reality check. So I'm really opposed to that second element of this motion because it seeks to prevent that first fundamental step of an accessible planning system that people can put up ideas into. Now, some of the time those ideas won't get through. Hopefully a lot of the time they do, but some of the time they won't. Some of the time there may be left field or unusual ideas or innovation. I mean, we all know that the bureaucracy is always behind our innovation, and some innovation's terrible. We had I don't want to mention the NBN briefing and how many electronic devices we expect to see in houses of the future. But some innovation can be good, but our bureaucracy isn't ready for it. So that element of discretion within a framework of guidance and rules and so forth for a planning authority, I see that as really important. That second element to this proposal, to prevent the application, to make it automatically an invalid application. That's not natural justice. So I'm really opposed to that.
So what are you telling me?
I can't find, I really love amending things and making things better, but I can't find a way to make this proposal better.
Thanks, Amy. Any other? Yes?
Look, I unfortunately I was travelling this week and I haven't had a chance to do my own research into what Amy sent through Monday night. It is a bit disappointing that there was no response from staff or any other councillor to what I think Councillor Robertson is raising at potentially a valid point. I don't feel comfortable supporting this motion in its current state until we actually get some independent legal advice. And I know we have Edge that we can use. I've read a lot of legislation in my life and I am not comfortable with my ability to interpret 57(1)(b), but there does seem to be a potentially relevant path. And I've always wondered why we have a planning authority and why we make decisions if we're not given some latitude to make decisions. And I know it's acceptable solutions versus not, there's latitude there. But I'm just wondering, is a worthwhile path for this is just to defer this motion till next meeting, flick the contents of this email off to Edge and say, is this the ramblings of a madwoman, or is there some reasonable interpretation of the Act?
So what are you telling me you want to do?
I would suggest that we seek independent legal advice and we defer the motion for a month. It's not going to hurt any of us to defer it for a month. But given that there's been no response, and if council staff all said, no, you're barking up the wrong tree, Amy, and here's the evidence for that, here's a Planning Commission's statement on this, but I haven't seen any response to Councillor Robertson's considered comments.
Through you, do I pass this on to the director, or do we just go to the vote on what we want to do here? What's the best avenue of attack? No, it's up to us.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
through you, Mayor. This is where it sort of becomes tricky, doesn't it? Because we've all been told how it should go because there's interpretation of words and words will always be interpreted and read by whoever. But I think this was where I was trying to hit on with certain things that have happened recently with the wording and the difference and the understanding and I'm still, just because it says no doesn't mean it should be no, and I tend to agree with you. I want to agree with all of you because I know that there's different things, but I'd be happy to defer it too.
If it's no, it's no, and I'm happy with no, it's no, but I don't know that it's no.
No, I don't either.
Through you, Mayor, we've already engaged on this, the matter of this DA. We've already engaged to sought further advice from the SPO. We've also engaged and have received preliminary advice from independent legal. Given the rarity of this type of circumstance, there's no great risk in deferring this motion, if that's what you want to do. And that will give us time to have that, have the contribution from that independent legal review to give you the comfort and a way to move forward.
And the independent review was for one part of the legislation. And like everything, different parts of legislation can dictate. So this is a new thing and that we hadn't talked about. I don't know, I'm assuming we haven't talked about Section 57.
We're tracking through with that independent legal advice on this entirety to try to remove all level of confusion or conjecture about it. So whilst we may not have, or we haven't responded to the particular email, we're certainly investigating in the right avenue, and my view is just I'd prefer not to just go backwards and forwards. We have independent legal engaged, and we're seeking to bring that to the table.
So what I'll do is I'll ask the rest. Councillor Rusak, have you got any?
I get Councillor Robertson's point for sure, but I think it's also quite obvious why this is recommended. I think it's not a huge delegation by the end of the day. Like, it only happens every now and so often that we actually get to the point that what might be perceived as a permitted application or even the discretionary during the preliminary assessment process turns out to be prohibited one. I wouldn't struggle with just letting the planners do their work, so to speak, and just as Councillor Burgess often says, just get on with it. Then, that just I mean, when you go back to the meeting when this decision was made, it was made contrary to the advice of staff at that night. And everything that we've seen from the audit panel and the forthcoming solutions to that issue being just based around having had this one difficult decision that we made. If this decision is taken away from us because of a parent planning assessment resolution, then yeah, I'm completely happy with that. I don't think that there is a problem to delegate this.
Thank you. Councillor Burgess? No? Councillor O'Neill? No? I'll go to the director here.
Through you, Mayor, there are a couple of issues here. Councillor Robertson's raised a particular issue about D in particular, as much as the other information raised. The D could be simplified to just read a letter to be written to the Minister for Planning requesting that Land Use Planning Approvals Act be amended to provide a clear pathway in the Act to deal with prohibited uses, full stop. The rest would then be removed. That takes away the presumptive outcome that application would or would not be valid. So that is an opportunity that you could consider if you're minded to consider that. The alternative is for a deferral, which would be a procedural motion that the matter be deferred for independent legal advice to be obtained and provided.
I'd be happy with a deferral motion. It sounds like there are balls in the air in terms of further advice, and I'm a fan of making a fully considered decision.
Oh, sorry, may I? I think the fact we're discussing whether we should or shouldn't probably says a lot, and it is rare. But is this sort of thing going to pop up more often because of this contradictory scheme that we have?
Well, okay. I'll go back to Councillor.
I think I was the maker, wasn't I?
Yes, you was.
So it's just I'm happy to defer it. I don't think it's going to come up again in the next month. It doesn't worry me at all. No.
Very unlikely for it to reoccur, and as we've set out in there, our practice, there's practice in place where we work with the customer to try to give them advice early. We're doing everything it's extremely unlikely, and it's the most unlikely and unlikely event. So it's deferring.
But I would like to see it tidied up.
We definitely don't need to tidy it up because it is a serious matter, and we want to be operating on a clear and legal pathway into the future.
Okay.
It's the second.
So, yes.
Through you, Mayor, the process would be better if it says just a procedural motion of its own right.
Happy to move that we defer this to seek independent legal advice.
So that is moved by Councillor Jessup and seconded by Councillor Robertson. So then there's no further discussion on that. We just go to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Was that all at once? Yes, that's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, so that's the end of that one. Yep. Report number 15.019/25, draft media policy. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Gibson, and a seconder. Seconded. Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Gibson.
Look, I think that it's really good to be putting this into place, and I think the staff's done a lot of really good work. It's not an easy thing to negotiate. I do have a couple of questions around the implementation. So at 3.5.1, there's a point about we have incorrect statements from various. Oh, yeah, no, that's right. No. It was about incorrect statements. So we do have incorrect statements from various media outlets, and I was wondering how it is that we determine, whether these were purposefully spread false information or not. So that there's discretion there, and the 12-month ban after this false information goes out into a media thing. I wondered whether that was, whether there's an avenue, I guess, for the media outlet to redress what they've said, to correct the record or rectify their reputation rather than being out for a year. So I'm not really going to don't need itch about it, but I do think that we should, because it's a new strategy, we should have a review in a year and see how it's going. I don't think it was mentioned any time for review, so I think maybe see how it goes and put a point D in review in 1 year. That's my sort of thoughts. I don't know whether the staff have any answers to that. When you get this, when there's this 12-month ban, is there a way for a media outlet to come back and say, correct the record for some misinformation?
Yeah, it's at our discretion, and obviously it starts with you asked the question on how do you the falsehoods and misleading. How do we establish that it's deliberate? It's about repetitive patterns of behaviour.
Sure.
So everyone's going to make mistakes from time to time, but if you see an outlet that consistently promotes falsehoods or attacks people that represent this organisation for whatever their intended reasons are, it's about that pattern. So it'd be unlikely that someone that had made a genuine mistake operating in good faith as the media, and the media's job is to hold us to account.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
the media's job is to mock and belittle along the way. So, if the media, if we got into the unlikely situation that a genuine mistake made in good faith had resulted in a ban like this, because we're not trying to censor anyone, then it's just so unlikely to happen. But if we were in that position and an outlet came to us and said, hey, we've been unreasonable, we understand it, here's what we're doing to modify that, absolutely, you'd change it.
The director would also.
Yes, through you, Mayor, just to also clarify on that, refer to 3.3.5 of the policy. Council reserves the right to issue a media statement on its website and social media correcting the reporting of incorrect data and unsubstantiated allegations published by a media outlet. So that is something that we would also provide to the media outlet. You will certainly get an idea as to the media outlet's response to that, as to whether or not they continue to publish that or retract or clarify the record.
Can I just say on that, part of this whole, the pattern and the repetitive nature, we don't want to be in a tit for tat where a media agency just continues to say stuff and then we have to continue to refute it and around and round and round. That's where we're seeking to just say enough is enough. There is a repetitive pattern here. We're not going to continue to engage in this display. It is a significant waste of council's time.
So further to the question of when this would likely be reviewed.
12 months, that's fine. I think a few of these significant policies that we've brought through have all been on that same ticket.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The standard is the 4 years. However, you have referred to a possible paragraph D, which would be the media policy be reviewed in 12 months.
I don't know who seconded it, but I don't know.
Councillor O'Neill.
Councillor O'Neill. You? Yep. Yes.
Yeah, I sent an email round to people, and as I said in response to some of the feedback, I'm not going to die in the ditch on this, and I do absolutely believe that we need a media policy, and I was very vocal about the attacks that we had on one of our councillors here by a so-called outlet, and that's unacceptable. I'm very conscious of this not making us look like we don't want media scrutiny, and I've heard what you say there. So the principles are important in any act or piece of rules for me. I'd like something like in the second principle, explain council decisions and their impact on the community. Yeah, I'd explain and be held accountable for council decisions. I think the media does hold us to account, and we haven't sort of talked about that other side of the coin. So that's sort of what I was thinking. In terms of some of the other comments, I do take the point, mocking and I think 3.3.3, media outlets must not mock, degrade, defame, insult, harass or abuse any person. And certainly they shouldn't be insulting and harassing. My original sort of feeling was, somebody wants to put a mocking cartoon of me in the Signet trading post or whatever it is. We know that people in France died because they mocked a religious thing, and there was a mass slaughter of journalists. It is part of the role of the media to satire. So I think, again, and I'm happy with the response. Two reasons I think I've pulled back from my initial revulsion of this term. One is that it's staff, and I do actually agree that staff shouldn't be mocked or in any way shouldn't be subject to this. To some extent, we put our heads up above the parapet, within reason. But it is a fine line, and I think, again, it's down to our discretion, and the repetitive pattern, that's right. And if there's a cartoon of me, I'll live with that. But it's not repetitive and it's not mocking. There might be a cartoon of you too, Lockie, don't laugh. But we're all certainly caricaturable. So that was really my only comment on it, Mayor. I'm just rereading my email. Thank you for clarifying not being able to use stuff off the website, it's only photos. That was it. So probably the principle for me is I think we need part of this, somewhere there needs to be a line that says we accept that the media holds us to account.
In the purpose statement.
In the principal statement or something?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, I know I did respond, no comment on there. It was actually on the basis that the first dot point is that Council recognises that effective engagement with media outlets and social media enables Council to facilitate transparent, open and accountable governance.
Yeah, I do accept that. But it's again, look, as I said, I wasn't going to die in the ditch over it, but I think it's important that we just, in this group, we say we're not scared of media and we encourage being held to account, and I just don't want this to be misinterpreted as us sort of wanting to use a blunt stick to hit the media with.
Unless you're the one being poked every day.
Mayor, look, absolutely, I do acknowledge your personal experience of very small parts of the media, and I think we have dealt with those people quite strongly in this council, and that has actually declined. But I also the social media comments, and again, it's not media, but the social comments about the vehicle stuff, I thought was appalling. That here we are trying to encourage vehicle safety, and people are saying it's all your fault that people are dying on the roads. That's just at the highest level, just silliness. But that's not the media. That's silly people who are wanting to push a barrow for their own going. Anyway, but I do acknowledge it, yes, it's a cumulative trauma that more of us get than others. Yeah.
Yes, councillor Robertson.
Thank you. I support Councillor Gibson's proposal for a review at 1 year. And I guess I almost as a generality, any new policy area reviewing after the first year is probably a good idea before it enters the 4-year cycle. Much as we all love reading policies. I was going to suggest one minor word change on page 5 to 3.3.7, the reproduction of photographs. What if that was images or imagery? Because photographs suggest still things, but people can edit out a 5-second video grab of a meeting, which isn't just a photo. So I guess imagery from council's website or video streaming might be a better word.
We would need to include that in the motion.
I
It
think
does say video streaming.
It does, but it's actually saying, it doesn't say the reproduction of videos, it says the reproduction of photographs. And it's like, say it can be taken from a video, you can take a photo from a video, but it doesn't take you, say you can
you're
take
saying that it's replace photographs with any imagery. Sure.
It's broader.
So it could be a still image or a moving image.
But if we say something in a council meeting and somebody clips it and puts it on Facebook, how's that?
Out of context.
Council's proposal.
Well, out of context, but this is a prohibition on doing it at all. You know, which is against what the policy says. If you're using it and then using it to mock people and put, you know, silly
It's
messages.
without the permission of us. It's a
Actually,
prohibition.
It is a problem. Yeah. So,
So,
why do we video our things? Let's just close it all down and let's not let anybody see anything. If people can't share it and use it and talk about it without our permission, isn't that getting away from that transparency thing?
absolutely agree. Point 7 on that is the only point that doesn't mention media outlets. So maybe we need to insert that in point 7 as well. So all the other 1 to 6 say that media outlets will blah, blah, blah. Point 7 is the only one that doesn't actually mention by a media outlet. So yes, I'm kind of with you. If I want to put on my Facebook that I made a brilliant speech tonight, or that you made a brilliant speech tonight,
Thank you,
Councillor
Anne.
Jessup, then I'm not a media outlet and this policy doesn't apply to me, and maybe I can do that as part of my free communication. But this policy is about media outlets. So let's add media outlets in point 7 as well.
3.3.7.
Yep. So the reproduction by media outlets of imagery published on the website, blah, 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 something like that.
Second the mover and seconder agree to those.
Photographs and imagery.
I mean, realistically, we cannot control this.
Media outlets, reputable media outlets seek contextual information about stories they run, and they seek consent to use imagery because they know the ramifications of using it incorrectly. So again, like those expectations really aren't going to be something that's going to, in the context of the type of engagement that this council has, they're not going to surprise a media outlet that is reputable.
Well, this and I also think too that it depends on how they're using it. If they're using it in a positive way, or if it's the repetitive pattern,
Right.
like you say. I don't mind copping a bit of flack for stuff. I think we all expect to cop a bit of flack for stuff, or we wouldn't have put a hand up to be, you know, the chosen 9. But there needs to be a moderation, and I think this will be a good in-betweener.
And as you say, it gives us a fallback when people abuse the right to commentate. And I would hate to think that we're removing the right of people to commentate on our decisions and our actions. But as you say, it's a tool that can be used when people, and we know and I go to other places around the state and I get, it gets bemused to me about the fact that we have such an active social media world down the Huon Valley. And I think we do get a bit of special treatment by certain people.
Okay, so councillor Gibson and councillor O'Neill, are you happy with those?
3.3.7, yes, that's absolutely fine.
And the D?
Yes.
For the purpose of the motion, Mayor, B would be the Media Policy GovCorp 024 included as attachment 1 of this report is adopted with the following amendment. Clause 3.3.7 is to state the reproduction by media outlets of photographs and imagery published on the Huon Valley Council website, Facebook, or taken from any video streaming or recording of any media is expressly prohibited without the prior written permission of the Mayor or their delegate. And D is the Media Policy GovCorp 024 be reviewed in 12 months.
The most important thing, we can have a look in 12 months' time and see if we've over or underreached.
Yeah, exactly.
And just add to that, Mayor, just the in the same manner that you've had reports on managing unacceptable customer behaviour, we need to consider that as part of the reporting process, so you're aware of what's going on.
Okay. Everyone's happy with that? Okay. Paul, you wish to?
No, I think we've talked on that enough.
All right, all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Thank you, motion is carried. Report number 15.020/25, dog management policy review. Refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Gibson and councillor Rozak.
We went through this fairly carefully in the workshop and made a couple of adjustments. I did notice that my one little adjustment, 3.3.1.2, the misspelling of inside wasn't changed, but
We'll fix that before it goes out.
not that it's a major point. Otherwise I think it's good, it's updated.
Yes, so Mayor, if this is passed, then this does go out for community consultation engagement, so you will have a engagement report and consider those before you finalise the report.
No other comments? No? Okay. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Thank you. The motion is carried. Report number 15.021/25, lease of public land, Signet Town Hall. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor move the motion, please? Councillor Rozak and councillor Armstrong. Councillor Rozak, would you like to open on that?
No, not much to say, I suppose, other than glad to hear that the Huon Arts group will keep the rooms at the back, and I guess most suited for those rooms anyway. And now that the classifieds or the Southern business services can stay for another 2 months, that will give us more time to, look at the restructure of the town hall until all the tenants move out, except the art group. So that will hopefully see the town hall in fresh paint, colour, and new life in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do I have any other? Yes, councillor Armstrong.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Just have a bit of a question. It could be a bit delicate. It always is usually, isn't it, with me? So the art place, what's that called? Sorry, the Signet Art Group? Huon Arts. Well, so they're going back to where they started, but they haven't actually been there for a long time because they've been leasing elsewhere, correct?
Yeah, okay.
Through you, Mayor, there are some matters which are to be considered in closed council.
We're muddling up open and closed.
Yes.
Well, should I continue on then?
Well,
don't know whether, I don't know. So this is the sort of thing that is confusing though, because half of it's discussed in open. And now my question is going to seem like it's going to be a hidden question from the public. But I'm not sure if I should continue it. Maybe I won't.
It'll all be open in the next, after.
Just in case I offend somebody, I won't, but it was certainly not about anything that was going on the last few months, let's put it that way. So I'll just ask it enclosed.
Do I have any other?
Not now.
Don't sulk.
Burst my bubble.
Well, the floor was yours.
Well, I
so-
know, but
Can you reword it in a way that's more general?
yeah, maybe. It's not, I'm just concerned that given that we are allowing the two rooms at the front to be utilised, would it seem fair that we're not offering the same service for the room at the back? Is that polite enough? That didn't sound, that's what I was trying, but I was probably going to be a bit more non-tactful the way I delivered it the first time.
Okay,
So because I find that a little bit, because the art group were using that room, but then they vacated that room to go somewhere else. And it was left there not being used. And we've,
No,
didn't they go across the road?
they've expanded across the road, but they've continued in that
Oh, they
space.
continued in that space too then, did they?
They've had,
So there we go. Problem
that's what I
solved.
was gonna, yeah, I mean, there's no matter of privacy around, they have had continuous use down there. And as far as expression of interest goes, they were the only ones that expressed an interest in that, in ongoing use of that space. So that's the difference with the front rooms.
It did. Now it has burst my bubble. No, not really. So, but would that still seem fair though, to release it to them, given that we, you know, is that room not part of a potential usage from the public?
That's the question we'll answer in close, I guess.
That's what we'll answer.
I'll see, I'm on the cusp again. Okay, I'll rest my case till then.
But you can say you rely on that expression of interest process to establish that, and we'll unpack that more in close, but I'm confident in the appropriateness of the recommendation that's been made.
Through you, Mayor, just to add on the CEO's comments there, the expression of interest process, which came with a lot of submissions, which weren't necessarily called for, but were considered by you in making the decisions, all related to the desire of the community to use those front rooms.
okay. Would you like to close, councillor?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
All right. All in favour? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Report number 15.022/25, draft amendments 02-2025 state planning provisions. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Armstrong and a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Armstrong, would you like to?
No, thank you. Found the whole thing quite confusing,
Any other comments?
but happy with the progress.
I agree with her.
Yep.
Through you, Mayor, the key one here is the provisions to allow subdivision to occur along dual zone boundaries. This is something that we have, as staff, advocated to the State Planning Office because Huon Valley Council has a number of dual zoned properties. The proposal that has come forward is limited to a number of zones. However, we have particular areas in Huonville that is part light industrial and part rural and part residential and part agriculture that would not be able to be subdivided under the proposal, which would subvert the whole strategic purpose for zoning them in the first place. So certainly the key to the submission is to clean up that proposal to be able to subdivide that land.
Hence the confusion.
But I think, Mayor, my view is there are necessary planning impediments. Otherwise, we'd have, last 20-storey glass towers in the middle of Huonville. But the more we can do to remove unnecessary impediments that just slow up housing, slow up, people using their land, the better. And that one seems like a particularly daft one.
Any other comments on that one? We don't need to close it.
I don't need to close, no, I think I've said enough.
All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors. The motion is carried. Report number 16.007/25. Status report, outstanding rates debtors, May 2025. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Jessup. Councillor O'Neill.
That looks all pretty straightforward and tracking as usual.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments on this one?
I think it is a bit concerning that there's still some long outstanding ones, but I think that we've probably touched on them in the past, and there's a lot of legal things. But I'm assuming certainly the ones from the last couple of years, I'm assuming we're following up and engaging with those people very actively to make sure that we come up with any sort of payment plans that we can for them. Assuming that.
Through you, Mayor, yes, a lot of those are with TCS. Some are unrecoverable and they are on the list that's with legal at the moment. What our next steps are in terms of, quite frank, to sell up their properties to release the debt that they owe. Some of them are deceased estates that are still in in limbo as well. So, as I said, they're with legal at the moment. Those right outstanding ones, we can action that at 3 years. We're looking at those that are 4 years plus, and they are a small amount. So we're not talking about a large amount of money in terms that are owing on those rates when you add them up. So that's why we haven't really progressed that, because the work involved in progressing it is obviously quite large. We are on par with previous years in terms of how we're going with the outstandings. It's just that we're a month out with our reporting. Normally we come to council in the April council meeting with the figures, so that's why they look a bit different compared to the previous year. So we're not concerned about the amounts outstanding. We are starting to look at some of them are increasing going to TCS, but they're again small amounts of people who haven't been paying anything off, and a lot more people joining up for payment plans.
If you mentioned some are unrecoverable, so for example, I suppose a property's been sold and the money's been sent to beneficiaries and it's all disappeared. Is that what you mean as unrecoverable?
No, that's not what we're talking. I mean unrecoverable by TCS by their usual.
Oh, but yeah, okay. So
sorry, that's that the TCS have determined that they're unrecoverable from their normal process. So therefore, our next step
is to legal.
That's correct.
And there's a trade-off, isn't there, where we probably have to, as a group, if it's going to cost us $50,000 to get $1,000 back, we'd be recommending to write them off, I suppose, as much as you'd not want to do that. Can we write off debts? I don't know if we can.
Yeah, there would be very key recommendations as to why you would not write off rates. They are a charge on the property. So at some point in time, a property will be sold and rates will be...
because they're still attached to, the property hasn't been liquidated. Yes. Right. Yep. Okay, cool.
That was scary though, wasn't it?
Oh, we could recover a debt in 50 years' time when the property's sold.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Report number 16.008/25, adoption of fees and charges for the 25-26 financial year. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Burgess and Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Burgess, do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, if you don't mind me. It seems quite reasonable, but it's a small percentage increase and everything. Just one question I've got, where it says schools going to the swimming pool is negotiable. I can't see what that negotiable, what's the starting point on negotiable?
Is it size of the
Oh,
group?
yes, yeah. Yes, you can.
Through your mayor. So this year, yeah, you're absolutely right. Is negotiable is not clearly defined on what's the starting point. And this year we created a trial, and because when there's bulk buy, effectively when we have more than 10 purchase or 10 single entry, for example, we can apply a 10% discount. And then if you get to 30, you get probably another 5%, you get to 60, you get another 5%. So those figures are arbitrary and based on experience of our property managers, past experience operating similar facilities in other states, but the percentage and the discount rate and numbers that's still subject to negotiation. But the overall idea is the more users or the more tickets they're purchasing, the higher percentage can be applied. But that's still within our financial delegation in terms of the maximum amount that as a director or the CEO is allowed to approve.
So they can't argue with you then?
The
They
customer.
can't argue to bring the price down then?
Well, if they tell me they're gonna bring double the number, yes, they can argue we give them better price, of course.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Any other, councillor Burgess, or
No, I don't.
that's it? Okay, thank you. Do I have any other?
I think they're reasonable, man. We've done our best to, and some of them staying the same, like waste and stuff, just like, that will hit us next year, I suppose, when the rates go up yet again, I think, aren't they gonna come up, but we'll wait till next year for that.
Okay, thank you. So I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, the motion is carried. Report number 16.009/25, financial report, April 2025. I have a councillor to move the motion, councillor O'Neill, and a seconder. Councillor Burgess. Councillor O'Neill? do you wish to speak to that?
Just like to point out, we did budget for drainage of the Cygnet and Hillenville sports grounds. But the Cygnet one will now have to be deferred, so it's probably not obvious in that line. It sort of says it's completed, but the Hillenville drainage is a lot more complex. I mean, we've got pumps and things like that, and used up that amount of money. It was done first, and probably needed more than Cygnet, but the Cygnet one will have to be thought about at a later date budgets.
Thank you. Okay, do I have any other?
I think so. This is what happens when you explain things along the way. We haven't got enough questions.
Oh, okay, we've got plenty of questions.
No, I feel it looks pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, councillor O'Neill, you happy with that? Yep, all right. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. Report number 18.007/25, summary of the engagement report on the Big Wheelie Bin survey. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Gibson and councillor Robertson. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of interesting data in this. It's quite good read. One of the things that I think came up to me was that there's so much difference both in household sizes and locations, and it's a mix of town and farm, the mix of large family. I was quite astounded at the family of 29. That was I didn't, but it was heavily dominated by two-person households in the Huon, which is, I guess, fairly normal. Yeah, so I guess my feeling was, and this no doubt will come out, that we need a variety of solutions because it's going to be quite different depending on what we're trying to deal with. With regard to FOGO, I noted that over 70% said that their reason against FOGO collection was that they already did it and they didn't need it, which I thought was good. Question 25 illustrated that action by council around FOGO could be a good saving because there's 46.36 put their FOGO in the general waste. There was an incredible number of comments saying that they burn it or they burnt the FOGO, and I guess it would be really good to deal with that because it's, because it's not the right thing to do with organic waste. So it's a lot of work to be done in the FOGO area, and I think the Huon is a great place to try innovative new systems that are localised, I guess, rather than trucking FOGO all to a long distance centralised place. And I guess you've got the added benefit that anything that we can compost here goes back into our soils and we get to use, which would be good. But the key is to focus on reducing waste to landfill, and that's a strong theme that came out in lots of comments as well.
And I can assure you that our council officers are front and centre with solid waste as far as Tesway South. I know that they have been pushing for an overall, it can't be individual councillors with messaging. It has to be a message for the whole of state on what you do and where you put your rubbish and how you dispose of your rubbish. There was a bin audit done with Clarence, and that was quite surprising how many people put their FOGO in their general rubbish bin when they done the audit. So I think that there is a lot happening in that waste space, but I can tell you, even though we're the bottom council in Tasmania, we are being heard. We're being heard loudly.
In the community or?
In the Waste Authority area.
Great, fantastic.
Yes. Yes, councillor
Mayor, like Councillor Gibson, I'm very keen on composting and FOGO, but I do my own composting. Two questions, I suppose. We can't really change anything with frequency until we go to contract negotiation with our provider. So when is that happening? And then the second part of that question is, as you say, Mayor, with things like the container deposit scheme, we're going to have potentially massive changes. So I suppose it really goes back from when are we going to be able to change anything, and what do we have to put in place in order to be ready to contract what we need, rather than just having to roll over the contract and suffer what we've got.
In the next financial year, we'll be in a position to start making some changes.
Yes.
And so there won't be any, and I've put it in one of the questions without notice tonight, public comment, that there won't be changes to the curbside in this year, whether that's route or frequency or all the rest of it. And the timing of this survey and the data is really rich, but it's not the be all and end all, and it gives us a lot to work on around the community's appetite for different services, the appetite for change. It's great to see the positivity around the service. I think it's 75% of people were satisfied with the service, but there's also very strong themes there around that don't surprise us, but reinforces the price sensitivity, but also the people's perception of convenience is very, very different depending on the rural and urban context. And we can utilise these results really effectively because it actually, the makeup of this survey, we had a 60-40 urban versus rural split of respondents. Our age distribution and household size distribution aligns with our demography down here. So it is a really sound representation of our community's needs, and it really just points to we actually just need to quite significantly rethink waste collection, be very cautious with FOGO, and really look first to how do we create a valley, a fit for the valley, stop organics going over the hill, and doing it in a way that it's not going to be prohibitively expensive or forced upon people who are already saying they're doing a high rate of composting. And I guess the other thing is, as we may need to, given other councils' experience of reductions in curbside recycling collection following container deposit schemes on the mainland, where some have doubled or halved the frequency of collection, and given the appetite for change here, there may be some, I think, in order to get a more cost-effective solution, the sensible thing to do, and what we'll be exploring ahead of re-tendering for this kind of service, is really to look at changing our collection frequencies, looking at bin sizes and the remix in pricing of those bins, and potentially we can also look at curbside extension potential as well. If it's happening less frequently, the cost will come down on some of those harder to reach and therefore more costly places. So it really gives us an ability, but I think this is basically saying we trust you to deliver a good service. You've got some opportunity for change. We are price sensitive. We're also keen on convenience. Let's look at some options. So we intend to bring to councillors what are those options, and see if there would appear to be room to service more people in a different way, but keep moderating our prices in an environment where price just continues to go up and up and up in waste. And sorry, I should say that if we can save some stuff on the current collection of recycling and general waste, there's that opportunity to reinvest that into FOGO, if curbside FOGO makes sense in some parts of the valley.
Sometimes when you ask a question and get an answer, you come up with several more questions. And I suspect that might happen with some of this stuff, maybe FOGO. So it's maybe more a comment than a question, but I'd encourage, as that process continues, further engagement, and it might meld in with our livability approach and engagement. But yeah, I guess I'd encourage to keep engaged on this, and as models, the recycling model will evolve in terms of the impact of that. But yeah, we might need to do not exactly this again, but we might need to re-engage and ask the next set of questions to refine the direction we go into with aspects of it.
I think we're expecting to, and probably to be more targeted, because the body of work that's actually being done next is looking into the geography of where these answers came from. So where is the price sensitivity mostly? Where is the FOGO appetite mostly? If it does resolve that, look, dense urban parts of Huonville are where there's appetite for FOGO, and we need to then understand that more, then there might be some focus groups coming out of those particular areas. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on this, but there's a lot of potential. It's quite exciting.
And the infrastructure from Tasmania South, the infrastructure plan, which has now been granted to the person that's going to, the company that's going to do that. There's going to be lots of conversation coming from that, and FOGO is front and centre on some of that infrastructure that we know that, what we need for the south and that. So it is front and centre at the moment. Yeah. Okay, do you wish any other comment? Do we wish to close on that?
No, I'm looking forward to the next instalment.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. The motion is carried. 19.024/25. We're about to move into closed council.
Excuse me, Mayor, just a quick comment before we close. One of our fans on the internet has texted me and told us the first concert, one of her first concerts was held at Inlet Farm, which I'm assuming is down at Runner. Yeah.
Yes,
So you can all stop Googling now. But yeah, so people do listen to us.
I think that the director has it up on the screen there already. Yes, he's been doing that.
Any comments about Huonville?
No, that's anybody? No.
Just
got
for
Huonville.
what I have actually discovered is that she died in 1834, 1835 in London. So the hall was late 20s, early 30s, so likelihood of singing in this hall, unlikely.
Thank you. So back to that, we're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those that are watching tonight, as we had no one in the gallery. The recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at
7:51.
pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations to discuss the following matters. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Jessup, and seconded Councillor Robinson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. I advise that in accordance with the Huon Valley Council's audio recording and council meeting policy, recording of the open session of the meeting ceased at
7:51.